Welcome back to another episode of Recruiters React. For those who are new, welcome. Recruiters React is a podcast we have here at Randstad where we are joined by our local recruiters to talk about career or professional topics that you are interested in. For today's episode, we will be covering a familiar topic that has been heavily discussed, which is artificial intelligence. This time, we are actually joined by Marvy and Hoon Teck to share their insights on the topic. Could you give an introduction of yourself to the camera?
Hi everyone, I'm Marvy. I'm a senior recruitment consultant for the sales and marketing desk.
Hello, I'm Hoon Teck, and I manage the IT technology team here in Singapore.
Alright, thank you for that. So our recent study has found that 85% of Singaporean companies are now actively using AI. However, there is a balance of 15% of local and international companies in Singapore that are not fully embracing AI. In the trend now, we are seeing that employees are using AI mainly for upskilling purposes to literally teach themselves the new skills in real time. So we are seeing it being very heavily used for content writing and strategy planning. But the craziest part is actually this significant number of people, they're actually using AI as a coach, a career coach, to ask them, how do I plan my career, where do I go from here and all that. So let's just address the elephant in the room now. Is AI actually coming for our jobs?
I think there are two levels to answering this question. And I think you have to look at it from a perspective of someone who's currently in the workforce already working, right? Or maybe like a fresh grad entering the workforce. And I think for existing people in the workforce, AI is going to make their jobs better, more strategic. I think it's going to transform their jobs into roles where they really have to use their brain, because AI is going to cut out all the simple routine mundane kind of work, especially in like sales and marketing functions where you're in a bit more of a commercial stakeholder management function. Like the human element of like trust and relationships cannot be replaced by AI, right? AI can make things easier, more efficient, but unless you learn to harness it, that is going to be, tricky. But I think for fresh grads, I understand if there's like concern and worry, because a lot of fresh grad entry jobs is to do all this mundane and routine work, right? And me being able to know what to ask AI to help like format my resume now is because I've actually done the resume formatting myself. So I think there is value in doing that grunt work that AI does now for like a fresh grad to build their foundation to eventually climb the ladder. Because then if that becomes like a missing piece, I feel like it could really threaten like fresh grads.
What about you, Hoon Teck? What do you think?
I think maybe in the future might replace jobs, but not for now. I haven't really heard any candidates or even from my team that they left because AI replaced them, right? But we do have increasing trend about people getting retrenched because of company going to cloud. So say for example, if they are doing IT infrastructure for like servers or networks, after the company gone into cloud, then their work is being made redundant. So I think cloud is first, then AI, right? So maybe in the future AI might really impact jobs.
But in your opinion, when it comes to AI, in this moment of time, do you think that Singapore is one of the countries on track to adopting AI?
I feel like there is a lot of talk. It's a huge buzzword.
Okay.
Like right now, honestly I've not done the research, so I don't know if there's data points to show like the effectiveness of it, right? So there will always be a lot of buzz and like talk about this, but whether it's actually going to like materialize, or maybe how much is actually implemented, that will take time to see, I feel. Yeah.
For us, we are on track, but we will probably be slower in terms of adoption compared to other countries. Not because we are not ready, but we are a little bit more on the safer side. So like a lot of companies, even though AI, they know that it benefits them, but the governance part, the safety part, the compliance part is something that's going to be slowing us down a little bit. So say for example like driverless car, right? A lot of countries have a lot of driverless cars.
Oh yeah.
But in Singapore is still like we're going that direction, but we're probably more on the slower adoption.
Yeah.
So I guess we will eventually get there, but more from a safer point of view.
Yeah. Research has shown that Singapore is ranked third globally.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, to be on track in adopting AI. Like
Okay.
specifically for industries like finance,
Mm.
logistics, and they say infrastructure as well as compared to other countries.
It's good to know. I think that data is very encouraging because recently I met the peers of mine like Randstad China, Randstad Hong Kong, Randstad Malaysia, right? The IT recruitment team heads, and then we were all like talking about wow, AI is such a big thing now, right? But then when we asked like, hey, actually how many percentage of your placements are from AI related roles? All of us say it's less than 5%. Yeah, so like every 100 people that we help, only 5 is related to AI. But that was like 2024 data. But the 2025 data I haven't really caught up yet. But for Singapore, it's definitely increasing.
Since Marvy, you have mentioned that AI is not coming for our jobs, but for the mundane part of our jobs. Which industries in Singapore do you think is actually safe from AI?
I think I watched this Diary of the CEO podcast, and he had an interview with the godfather of AI. I mean, this is an American context lah. And I think the guy said something about how one of the best jobs to have in the future is to be a plumber. So I think from my personal perspective, you know, like outside simply of like sales and marketing, it's a functional recruitment kind of desk anyway. I think your folks in like healthcare, like Singapore, we have evolved as an economy to be more of, you know, beyond this like very laborious, time-consuming kind of professions. But I think the switch might be flipped down the road, right? And I've recently also seen news articles on like on street signs about how the newer generation is going into more like handy kind of businesses, right? Where there's like aircon businesses, like tire businesses, like old family businesses, and rather than getting out into the corporate world, they're going to support their family businesses. So I feel like those industries and those like trades, specifically I guess how you categorize them, like trades are less likely to be replaced by AI. I mean, if you look at like sales and marketing, I mean sales of course you need the person to go out there and do a pitch, right? But AI is going to be able to create a pitch deck. You know, if you're looking at like a marketing agency, your content people, your media analytics people, right? AI is going to be able to do all that. But ultimately, you need your account directors, your BD directors to pitch to the clients, to manage the clients' relationships, emotions. So in that whole like corporate structure, AI could like threaten the jobs. But I think on the trade side, that human element might not be replaced.
It's not only healthcare, but also at other sectors like education as well, especially in early child development. That one is very important where they really need that human connection because the learning curve is much better when you have someone teach the child instead of a robot to teach the child. Alright, then let's talk about working smart then. If I were a candidate, right now, would it be encouraged to use AI to write my CV?
I think you can get AI to generate it, but you must edit it.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've tested it out myself. Because I mean, I've worked with some very senior candidates. Some of them, you know, don't have CVs. Then I use their LinkedIn profile and I like generate a CV. Sometimes AI just ends up copying and pasting the words in the job description to create the CV when it might not actually be reflective of the person's experience. So I need to do that cross check. And sometimes I'll call out AI, I'll highlight a sentence and I'll be like, where do you get this from? You know, and then AI gives me like some kind of that thought process of actually not so accurate lah. So I'm like, why not, you know, use AI to adapt your CV, you know, and it makes it ATS friendly, that's what they say. So because a lot of ATS systems now could also use AI to filter. But at the end of the day, make sure it's accurate because if say your CV gets shortlisted and you go for an interview and you're questioned about it, the last thing you want is to be caught, you know, lying. Because once you cross that line, it's very hard to go back.
Yeah, I think it has to be a good balance. Like maybe if it's like my kid, then I'll get her to do our CV first. Then use AI to craft out their version. Then from there modify it accordingly, like merging two together. If you use AI immediately, then she might have her own ideas, right? That is unique to herself. But if you first give her the AI created CV, then she might just like rely too much on it and it lose her personality in the CV.
That is true. But from a recruiter's point of view, right, when you go through CVs and everything, right, can you detect or can you like assess whether this CV is written by AI?
Purely not with CVs actually.
Not with CVs.
But actually I can detect like on LinkedIn, you know, there are a lot of people who post on LinkedIn now. I think it's very obvious on LinkedIn when people use AI or not to write their posts. But on CV it's not so much because I feel maybe even if someone to personally write their CV, you write it in a very straightforward, like no frills. It's a very no frills kind of manner, you know, which is basically how AI could also, right?
Mm.
But I feel like on LinkedIn posts is quite obvious.
Quite obvious lah. What are the dead giveaways?
I think everybody says the M dash.
Yes, oh my god!
This one. And the structure, like the cadence, the way they write it, yeah, it's just a very copy and paste structure. And then I wonder, is it maybe a certain influencer started writing this way and everybody likes it and they emulate? Or is everybody just using AI? That's why it sounds the same.
I think more importantly, when I screen candidates, if I feel like whatever that they are sharing, their experiences doesn't really match with their CV, right, then I'll just have to cross-check. And that's where some of them actually admitted that they didn't write the CV.
Oh.
And that's where I need to like co-share a little bit more.
Okay. But even if you can smell AI, right, on the CV, would it be like a terrible thing? Like, would you say like, oh, this is nonsense, eh?
No, I actually think it's a good thing because we have a lot of clients, not a lot, but increasingly more clients getting us to recruit for talents that really adopts AI, and hopefully this new blood can help influence their existing workforce to adopt AI a little bit more. So if for whatever reason I want to detect whether they're using AI to write their CVs because of the requirements of my clients.
In the end of the day, I mean, Hoon Teck has already mentioned it, so but do you think employers actually care whether they use AI to generate their CVs?
I mean, I honestly don't think so lah. Especially for sales roles, like if the candidate has worked in the right companies and you have the right network, and the functional purpose of the CV is just to showcase his experience, then I think it's more about having the in-person conversation and interview. That's more important than anything else. As long as you don't lie on your CV.
Our recent report has shown that employees are using AI to upskill themselves, whether if it's professionally or personally lah. But I'm also seeing a pattern in Singapore specifically where junior employees, right, they are using AI as some sort of a cheat sheet to kind of bridge the gap with senior employees when it comes to skills and techniques. Can AI really be used to kind of close that experience gap?
I think it's a bit the other way around. Like, for example, the junior software developer, right? Then yes, you can use AI to help. Right? If it's a senior one, it's gonna be difficult. Yeah. So I mean, just on more context is that maybe for candidates they don't really have software development experience, but they are more like the IT director, right? And they have no experience in that at all. And when they are applying for jobs that require software development, right, they will then try to convince the interviewer that, hey, I don't have that software development background, but I can show you examples whereby I use AI to close that gap.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the employers are okay with that?
Yes, because for senior candidates, actually you don't really need a very in-depth software development experience, right? You need to have that background in order to like effectively manage like the business demands or like effectively inherit the software development team.
We are also seeing people turn AI as a career coach, a career therapist, to kind of map out their career plans lah. Can a bot really do that, and can it really do it well?
I haven't tried it before, and I haven't had any candidates try it before. But I know that the limitations that we can't scrape data from LinkedIn. I think if you can scrape data from LinkedIn, the information will be a lot more accurate.
Okay. I think there's a difference between theory and reality. Of course, like on paper, if you have skill sets and you say like another, you want to pivot into another job and it's the same skill sets, then of course, I mean, AI could give you the answer. But I guess it's another thing about where AI gets its data from, right? Can they scrape data or consolidate all the data of what the exact job market situation is like, right? Just because you've got the transferable skill doesn't mean that there will be an opportunity for you to move into that job. If the industry is not even hiring, then what's the point, right? But I've tried it myself, and I think it gives me very theoretical answers. And then it's only when I probe further and be like, yeah, but the market conditions is like that, and there are a lot of candidates in the industry who are out of job. I don't think I can pivot. Then they're like, yeah, maybe you're right. So I'm like, oh.
As Marvy mentioned that a lot of the roles for fresh graduate, there is a risk of them being replaced by AI. There's that concern, there's that topic being brought up, right? If we start offloading all of these entry-level skills to AI, right, are we accidentally killing the next generation of experts?
Yeah, I'm worried.
Yeah, because how would you learn if you never have the basics to actually have hands-on experience to do the thing itself?
Yeah, my perspective is to move into a strategic role where you are making decisions and calling the shots. You need to have actually done the execution work yourself. and like be on the ground, because then it's not so much about actually doing it, but knowing the limitations of what can be done. And sometimes you go in with an ideal kind of end goal, but you realize that reality versus theory is different lah. So I feel like if, like for example, if I didn't have that grant period where I have to brainstorm my brilliant searches, or like write my own CV summaries and everything, like I won't be as strategic with AI with how I use AI. Sure, maybe you can say that you try and error with AI and everything, but it's true me spending all those hours, combing through CVs, combing through LinkedIn, talking to people, doing the very manual work, that I have built that pool of experience that I can now share my strategic insights from. And I don't think it's any fault of the new generation, because that is the market like they're graduating into, and I'm like juniors also who share their concerns with me. So I think then there's ownership, right? My personal opinion, ownership on like senior leaders, right, in our economy, to make sure that it's used ethically and that we don't undercut the generations below us, because after all it's going to be their kids and their grandkids, right? So there needs to be limits, right? Because at the end of the day we're all people.
I think we definitely need to be worried. So like we have clients whereby even though the role is like a very AI software development role, right? But funny enough, the interview when we conduct for junior developers, right, they requested that the test cannot use AI. So then it's like, why would you do that? It's an AI software development role, why not? So I think the objective is, the rationale is to make sure that they still have that, like the decision make, like the train of thought, like they are really
The basic
creating,
skills.
Correct. So we really see like maybe the clients have really recognized this gap, and that's the reason why they are trying to make sure that yes, you can rely on AI effectively, but at the same time you need to have all those like train of thought. You know how to like do the engineering and all.
Alright, so if AI can code, write, copy, and analyze data, what is left for us then? What can we do? What is the one human skill that becomes more valuable as AI evolves?
I think like any roles that require human touch. Like for example, just now I mentioned about healthcare, right? You wouldn't want like a robot to tell you that you have 6 months left to live. Definitely need a lot more human touch. Or like maybe legal, not the corporate one, but more of a personal kind of legal.
Ethical judgments, I guess. Right?
Yeah, anything that's like that requires human touch.
I think from the perspective of like sales and marketing, and actually in any business, right, as you climb to the top, it is about sales, right, revenue. I think a very crucial part is trust and credibility, which I think that human touch is very, very important. Like AI can never replace it completely. Like whoever, even like now, right, our clients who come to us or whatnot, they come to us because they find us reliable, they trust us, they know that we're going to represent their brand well. And I think that element AI can never ever fully replace.
But I do want to ask for Hoon Teck specifically this one question. Do you think a robot can teach leadership?
Partly, but not entirely. I guess for leadership, like for example, David Pascoe, country director, right? I realized like there's a lot of like social capital, like going back to like talk about trust and all, right? Or like sometimes I realize like he needs to make decisions that's like future, it's not like vision, right? So you cannot like rely on the past data. So I don't think can entirely replace leadership.
So what about leadership can it teach them?
More in terms of like the framework, like for example, firstly, I think sometimes they will find out, like you need to find out like what kind of leadership style do you have, and then they will then share like, what's the pros and cons of the leadership style. Like leadership is quite a lot about like having difficult conversation. So then maybe AI can do like a role play.
Okay, so is AI just going to turn everything to a sea of average? So because from what I notice is AI generates the same answer over and over again, regardless of who you are, where you are. If I'm a marketing exec in Singapore, or if I'm a marketing exec in Malaysia, or if I'm a marketing exec in Hong Kong, when they ask the same prompt about marketing to AI, they will generate, most probably 90% of the time, they will generate the same answer. Yes, I agree that AI helps us with consistency, but if all of us are using the same models to generate the ideas, to generate the content and everything, can one actually stand out?
Perhaps I think of this like from the marketing agency perspective, because I do recruit like for marketing agencies, and I do speak to leaders in that space. And I think there needs to be, and they are very mindful about it, the balance of using AI to do the mundane stuff, right? Like the content generation, the analytics, or just writing the content. But at the end of the day, you need these marketing agency experts there to adapt it to the brand voice, to brand guidelines, right? To remain unique. Because after all, I mean, big enterprise companies or any brands out there pay marketing agencies to establish their brand, right? And the whole point about having a brand is for it to be unique. So I think potentially, talking about how AI could just make us average, perhaps we might reach a point where then there's going to be that reverse push, right? Like AI is making me like any other brand, so perhaps I don't use AI anymore. I think there needs to be that balance.
But I was talking to a couple of the recruiters as well, that they mentioned that they are seeing a lot of AI, a lot of companies that are using AI to screen resumes and even conduct video interviews. So, do you think that as a recruiter, should this be encouraged?
Screening resumes, perhaps. In my opinion, AI interviews are no go. I think number one is terrible candidate experience. Who would want to be talking to a robot for a prospective job? I don't think it's good for the company branding. Perhaps if you want to have an AI test or whatever as like a final stage formality, sure. But I think at the end of the day, when you're recruiting talent for your company, you need to put the best foot forward in terms of branding. So I think AI video interviews should be done on a video basis. Yeah, but perhaps screening resumes, like in ATS systems, makes sense. I mean, I don't fault them because it is sometimes high volume kind of applications for certain roles. But we have to make sure that we're not losing out the right candidates, the right talent. Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't really seen AI interviews, but we've seen like recorded interviews, and usually the candidate experience is not very positive. Yeah.
Then from a talent's perspective, Hoon Teck, in what way would working with an actual recruiter be better than working with AI when it comes to looking for a role?
I think the main thing that I've learned is sometimes being a recruiter is also trying to be a lot more empathetic and trying to motivate them, sharing stories. Like for example, last year I placed 4 candidates that are above 60 years old, and they really thought like, hey, I'm really never going to get back to the workforce, and I need to do like side jobs to hit my retirement nest, right? But that's where I use these stories of people getting jobs above 60 years old and encourage the other candidates to continue. Because like going through, after retrenchment and going through interviews can take a toll on them. They are like senior people who, when I first met them 5 or 10 years ago, they are like super confident, right? But I can see that their confidence level is dropping when the day passes. So whenever I share stories like that, they get really surprised, and I think it helps them, motivate them, which I don't think AI can do that.
Yeah, I think even with sales and marketing, especially sales, like we're seeing a lot of mid to senior level folks that be out of job, and these are people who have never had to, maybe in the last 10-15 years of their career, not have to apply for a job because they are headhunted or their experience is valued. But I guess the job market is going through a bit of like stagnancy and change, that you're seeing more of this. And for the senior level people, it is a pyramid, right? So there are less opportunities out there for them. It can be demoralizing, and I think just like to answer the question, I guess the recruiter can provide a perspective that AI doesn't. So sometimes I speak to candidates and they tell me that based on their experience, they think that they can only go into these jobs. But I guess I can offer the perspective of actually, you can explore these other alternatives too. And we do work relationship with clients, so we are in a position to at least try our best to make sure that the hiring manager does see their CV rather than it just becoming lost in a whole other bunch of maybe 200 other applicants. Yeah.
I mean, I do agree. Speaking to a couple of recruiters as well, AI can just send the email, AI can just draft the email, send the email, attach the document, yada yada, all that. But to really, as what Hoon Teck said, to really tell their story, right, it's not something AI can do, because it's beyond the CV. And what can you get beyond the CV? AI cannot get, because AI can only scan the document. Whereas what can you get beyond the CV is something that you have to put in effort to talk to the candidates, to really listen to their stories, and then do your best to convey it to the client as well. But yeah, that wraps up the session for today. Is there any last messages or anything that you would like to comment about AI that you would like to share?
I guess perhaps as much as there is fear or like uncertainty about it, I guess the best thing we can do is to embrace it and integrate it into what we currently do. I think if you haven't started using AI, the best time to start is now. Because I think whether we like it or not, it's probably going to be more and more prevalent down the line. Yeah.
Yeah, whether or not AI will take your job in the future is a question mark, right? But I think for now, just to play safe, buy as an insurance, right? Maybe you can future-proof by learning AI, because there's quite a few people that are sharing that you're not like really competing in AI, but in the future you'll be competing with peers that know how to utilize AI. So I think it's definitely important to future-proof.
Then let me ask you this, since the both of you are encouraging people to take up on AI more, right? What is one AI thing that you think talent should pick up now? Because AI is a very broad term. You can say AI, but what are the specific skills or specific software or trade that people need to be taking up on these days?
Yeah, I think it's prompt engineering. So I think like a couple of years ago, prompt engineer as a job is like a joke, right? I can't be like, what kind of job is this, right? But you realize like as you talk to the chatbot, right, there's like that you need to have a certain, you need to like informally like you need to edit your prompts accordingly so that the chatbot will give you the answers that you need.
Alright, so that concludes our episode for today. Thank you, Marvy, and thank you, Hoon Teck, for coming. And that will be all. Let us know what you think below.